We are live. This is the Code Breakers. This is Paradox. It is September the 3rd, 2024. So we have been told. We are here. All right. Coming off of Labor Day. Um, there's a few things going on today. Looking at some polls on the left and some polls on the right. Some polls in the middle. And it seemed like, uh, from what I can estimate, it's right around what we're thinking is that Kamala them are up a little bit, probably by a few points. I know everything is tight, and you got polls saying everything you want them to say. You look at your news feed, but my gut is telling me, regardless of the numbers, that she's probably up probably 3 or 4 points nationally. I think the polls are saying some of the polls are saying that, and other polls are saying that she's down. But they are the media people. I would say the mainstream media people and the mainstream internet people, because I'm putting the mainstream internet in there as well now, because I don't think they're giving that much independent opinions. Everybody's running propaganda. I'm watching liberals. I'm watching libertarians, uh, Republicans, far right, centrists, people on the far left, progressives, moderate Democrats, etc. And it's just like a big hodgepodge of just propaganda being spewed against Trump, for Trump, against Kamala, and for Kamala. And it's unusual, but I know that they're trying to generate content. Is what I'm thinking. You know, it's a lot of content, a lot of bills that got to get paid, I guess, because they're demonizing Trump, and at the end of the day, Trump's just a real estate guy from America, uh, and you can spin it how you want to spin it. And for Kamala, she's just a middle class woman, that's striving. Basically, she's a striver. You know, she got her schoolwork done. She went to college. She got a job. She's working her way up the ladder. Simple. It's just as basic as it can be, really, on both sides. And then the spin happens, and then you get caught up in the spin. And I would argue that. It is so much craziness going on kind of behind all of it. Like, the politicians are like the front. So you're focusing on Trump and her, but like behind underneath it though, it's just as nasty as it get on both sides. Both sides are greedy, both sides are trying to get paid, trying to get attention, trying to survive. Fox News, MSNBC, they're trying to survive. And I don't know if they know even how to go back. I'm watching, professional newscasters have an issue with Kamala and Tim pushing a positive message, which makes no sense, and people are being sucked, basically, they're being kind of sucked into all of it, and it's frying their brains. Um, the media is, you know, they're not helping people. And I hate that I tend to spend a lot of time talking to people and they're just parroting what's on the media. So I'm watching, a lot of regular people be interviewed on different shows, and it's like they're not even giving you, they're not like taking the information, trying to think about it, and then respond. They're just basically literally parroting talking points. And if you watch as much media as you can from the far left all the way across to the far right, you're gonna pick up a lot of things they're saying, and then you're gonna hear regular folks basically just repeating that stuff. And it doesn't even, I'm not saying that it makes any sense. And I get that that's how the media is, but I hate that people are, you know, not really having their own thoughts or trying to have their own thoughts. They're just, like I said, just parroting the information. But anyway, so you look at Trump, and Trump has been demonized. I think they first said he was a Russian. The media first tried that he was a Russian agent. He's a Russian spy. Uh, and I think now Trump and his campaign and his minions are now saying that Kamala is a communist. So we're trying that commie Kamala. Now I get that if you understand politics, um, that to me it's a lot of it's entertainment, but that's just to me personally speaking. I don't take any of it necessarily overly serious. But if you watch a lot of media, or if you pick up whatever you see on the internet or whatever that comes through, it's almost like people are believing these people though. It's like that it's political. It's like people don't realize that it's political spin, and then you're trying to convince the people in the middle to sort of make a decision. And I always just find it pretty funny, um, that and so anyway, boy. So when you look at Trump's camp, you know, I always say they have pretty much straightforward Republican talking points. They're pushing Republican policies. Even if you don't believe they have policies on the left, I mean, I can show you 100 videos where Republicans are saying Democrats have no policies. It doesn't matter what you think of the left, they're running that with, and like I said, you're getting 70, 80 million people who are going to vote automatically for whoever is on the Republican ticket, and vice versa. So it's cool, it's fun. Like I said before, it's entertaining, but it's just very interesting that a lot of this stuff people are taking literally, and it is more of just pushing content. They need things to talk about day in, day out. The 24/7 media cycle. You just would have thought. I would have thought that the internet people. Was my whole point about some of this program, is that I would have thought the internet people would be more honest. But then you really find out they are basically just parroting the mainstream media in a lot of ways, and fronting like they're not doing that. And I'm like, I'm watching stuff on live stream, thinking that you guys got to give it some kind of alternative opinion, and maybe there isn't one. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe there is nowhere else to go, or it's too difficult to generate your own content. It's just much easier and more lucrative just to parrot, basically just parrot off of Fox News or Newsmax or whoever. 'Cause I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this does come down to the money. And I'll be thinking to myself sometimes, who are these people working for? Like, I listened to this one progressive guy, and it's just unusual that he would play clips of Trump maybe slurring or making up or saying something kind of strange on some days. And he basically was like Fox News in reverse, of course, where he's making it seem like, well, Trump is losing his mind. He's seen now. And I'm thinking about myself like, bro, you are an independent media source, an individual person by yourself, and you're doing content every day, and you just can't help yourself. Like, you're doing. I mean, what are you really doing here? You're a grown adult male, and you're trying to make it seem like this person is something wrong with this person. But if you follow Trump, and he talks pretty much every day, obviously he's normal. But you would never believe that, if you have the left wing media getting you all excited, and to show how simple minded people are. And it does show you that millions and millions of people are very, very easily just manipulated and drawn into this stuff. It's just fascinating, to say the least. And I was watching Hugh Hewitt, and I'm watching Hugh Hewitt, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what I should play? I'm gonna play that Fox News clip with Trump, and I just realized that too. I'm gonna play that clip. Trump and what is his name on Fox News? Let me see, can I find it? But I was listening to Hugh Hewitt today, and you're talking about a crazy person. I'm like, I mean, y'all don't have anything else better to do. How, to keep saying that this woman, and I'm gonna tell you something. If you watch a lot of content on the right, and I mean, it's loud too. They're basically making it seem like Kamala is a complete buffoon. And I'm thinking to myself, if I didn't know any better, I would start believing it. Because I mean, it is a onslaught every hour on the hour. I'm not talking about the mainstream. I'm talking about the internet people. I know a lot of them come from mainstream, and that's probably the problem anyway. And then they're basically infecting the internet people, and then the internet people don't even I don't even know if they know what's happening to them or not. You know, and a lot of people aren't really following a lot of stuff, so they're just kind of like I said, just picking up the information and just sort of running with it. But I just think it's funny that you don't understand that when you're chasing votes, when you're chasing, when politicians are chasing things, they're gonna do whatever they gotta do, and they're gonna say whatever they gotta say at the end of the day. Let me see. Trump interview with Fox. I'm trying to think. What is that old white dude name? I think I got it right here. Yeah, yeah. Levine, Life, Liberty, and Levine. I didn't get a chance to actually watch it, but I'm gonna play some of that as well. I know that's gonna be pretty funny to watch. And you know what's so crazy? And you look at the if you look at the last 8 years as well, we had a global pandemic in itself, which is kind of crazy. But you look at the last 8 years, and I don't know. I don't think things are that nothing is radically different. Some things have moved a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and I guess there are some big things like getting rid of abortion, of course, that the Republicans are continuing to pay for. I'm gonna be curious to see if women are going to hold themselves together and be able to vote for Kamala. But my biggest thing is that making it's very interesting because see, Trump's been around forever for 50 years basically. So it ain't I don't it's not really a lot to break down on him necessarily anyway. Because kind of the same old. But with her, making her stupid, I just find it kind of funny. That she babbles. Like we're going with the babbling female. To me is just it is very interesting how they can sort of shred your you can be educated, be informed, but man, when you get into politics, man, they will destroy you. Doesn't matter who you are. You can have a Harvard degree, a PhD, like what they did to what's that guy's name? Oh man, what's our doctor from Baltimore? The brother that does the all the surgeon stuff from back in the day that finally ran for president, and how they just destroyed Ben Carson, man. Or even even Ron DeSantis, when they talk about he put steps in his boots to make them taller and stuff like that, man. It just makes me laugh. Uh, it makes me laugh because it doesn't take much on a national stage to chew you up. I will say, and I'm gonna stick to it, win or lose, that Donald Trump should have at least went with Vivek. You get you a brown man in there, it will throw everything out of whack. But the right wing, they just can't do it. But that would have been a game changer, for sure. But anyway, let me play a little bit of intro music, and then I'm gonna look at some of these videos that's out here. Let me see. Get a little bit of energy on the stream. All right, all right, all right, all right. Enough of that. Enough of that. I was thinking about that song earlier today. I had to play that. All right. So we got let me see what we got. What we got. I think Trump is giving a speech today. I know that they have a fighting for reproductive freedoms, which of course I've been telling people that that will be the number one issue. Even though they keep saying it's going to be the economy, I know the economy is going to be major, of course, but they're going to be pushing. The biggest thing is to push reproductive freedoms and get men and women to support it. But the economy would be important. Prices are still too high. And that's going to play a major factor, regardless of all the other rhetoric that's out there, of course. And of course, internationally, we still got to deal with foreign affairs, wars, and trade as well is going to be major. But at the end of the day, of course, the economy. But from a left perspective, they're gonna be pushing reproductive freedoms, and they're kicking off something. I'm gonna play some of that. They're down in Palm Beach County. And I don't think Kamala and Tim is there, but some of the Democratic folks are there speaking. I'm going to play some of that. And what else do I got? And Kamala gave a speech yesterday on Labor Day in Detroit for probably 15 minutes. I'm going to play a little bit of that. But before that, I'm gonna play some of this Trump interview on Fox. I didn't get a chance to watch it. See what him and old Levine is chatting about, and then we're gonna close this. Probably pretty much close everything out at that point. So let's see here. Let's see.
Tonight and tomorrow night, p.m. Eastern as well. My interview with President Trump. Now, let me tell you something that's unique about this interview. Our discussion.
Well, I don't need you to preference anything.
Zillow helped me land this Airbnb listing. Yes, Zillow. Now, here's the craziest part.
You're a newscaster. Relax.
But I think we're doing very well.
Hopefully they don't yank her and then put a third one in. You never know.
That'll happen, I'm sure.
First of all, we're here for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is you have a fantastic new book that's coming out. And I'll tell you what's amazing about this book to me as I went through it. And you make your notes, you have comments in your book. The pictures are beautiful. A couple of things. Number one, your attachment to working Americans. There's Hollywood, there's the athletes. You saw the Democrat convention. You had one entertainer after another. Your book is heavy with firefighters, police officers, coal miners, people who drill for oil, truckers, common people. So let me ask you this. You spent most of your life around these people. You were a developer. You were a builder, electricians, plumbers, construction workers of every kind. You created thousands and thousands of middle-class jobs with pensions, medical insurance, and so forth and so on. Why do you think your opponents get away with claiming to represent the little guy, the middle class, the blue-collar worker, when they have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with them? And you've spent your entire life around them.
Well, certainly, I had two opponents. I had Biden, and then he disappeared a couple of weeks ago at their insistence. And we had a debate, and the debate was a good debate. And he was 18 or 20 points down, and they went to see him, and they said, "We want you out. You're not going to win." And you started hearing those rumors, and then all of a sudden he was gone, and they gave me a new one who never got a vote. In all fairness to him, I'm not a fan of his, but he had 14 million votes. He worked for a year to win. She actually started off with him, when you think. But he worked for a year to win. He won. And then they threw him out when they say, this is not a democracy. Okay, when you think about it, what is that all about? She never got a vote. But regardless, so then they gave me her, and he's a very angry man, but he's gone. And now I have Kamala. I call her Comrade Kamala because she's radical left. She's a radical left Marxist. And that's what she is. And she'll destroy our country. There's not going to be any fracking in Pennsylvania. And for her whole life, there was none. She fought people like I've never seen anything like it. Look at the way she fought Justice Kavanaugh, the viciousness and the violence. She's a Marxist. She's worse, much higher in the scale than Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are not as left as she is, but she's just really out there. Now she's totally changed her whole policies, everything. I mean, she's gone, they call her the greatest flip-flopper because she's gone for I'll never drill for oil to let's put a well on every street. But she won't do that. If she won, she'll never do that. She'll never do that. She'll never do any of the things. I saw today she wants to build walls. She fought me for years on the wall. I built hundreds of miles of wall, but she was one of the people that fought me. One of the Democrats, but one of the people. I think it's a lot higher than that. And Mark, they come from prisons and jails. There's a slight difference of thousands, and then they announce the crime rate is way down. That's what they've done. Their crime rate is way down now. But they come from Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and from South America. And they're destroying our country. And when you watch her, like at the convention, everything's just peachy-dory. But migrant crime is turning out to be a disaster. Many, many people are killed and raped and mugged and everything else. These are tough people. But they let them out of jails. You take Venezuela. Their crime rate is down at a number they've never had before. They're taking all of their criminals and busing them into the United States of America and dropping them and saying, if you come back, we will kill you. And then I'm supposed to sit and debate this person. And she'll say, oh, no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And now she's going around and saying, we had the weakest border in history. She was the border czar. She was put in charge of the border. We had the weakest border in the history of the world, I think. I believe it's not just here, the world. And now she's going around saying, I think I'm going to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall. She fought me for years on the wall. She was on every lawsuit. I had 11 lawsuits. And she was on every one of them. One of the leaders. She's not that much of a leader. But the one thing she is radical left. And she's rated much further left than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was unelectable, and she's much worse than him. And Biden was just a fake. He wasn't really left. I don't think he really knew what he was, if you want to know the truth, actually, for a long time. But Biden was not real. She's real. She really believes in all this stuff. Defund the police. She wants to defund the police. For years, she said defund the police. Now, all of a sudden, a little while ago, she goes, no, I don't want to defund the police. She's flip-flopped on every single thing that you could flip-flop, from border strength to defunding the police. Things that you wouldn't believe. She doesn't want to have any fracking. She doesn't want to have oil. She doesn't know how you're going to fire up our plants. How do you fire them up? You don't fire them up with wind, I can tell you that. The wind, let the wind blow. So I think our country's in serious trouble. The good news is I'm leading. I think I'm leading maybe by a lot. Could be a lot more than people think. And historically, I was losing to Hillary, and I ended up winning quite easily. Once people hear, and also they have to look at what we did. We had a great economy. We had no inflation. We rebuilt the military. We defeated ISIS, but I had no new wars. Our country is going to be in World War III. Right now, we don't have a president. We have Biden that just took a vacation in California, came home, was going to go to the office. He decided to go back to Delaware. Was going to take another vacation. And we have people talking about World War III. And a war like no other, by the way. This would be a war like no other because of the weaponry. So we just have a country that's in such trouble. I know it's close to your heart, but the October 7th attack of Israel would have never happened if I was there. As you know, Iran had no money to do that. Iran saying they're going to blow up worth of military equipment behind. Afghanistan now is one of the largest sellers of military equipment in the world. They're selling our equipment. They said, bring Trump back and it'll all stop. We had no problem when Trump was president. We had no stop
on the border, thinking about the border, litigating to get the money to build the wall. $8 million a year in 4 years' time. That's a lot of illegal.
And it would be much higher than that.
And it would be higher because of all the gotaways. Right. Billions to sanctuary cities, billions to pro-illegal alien NGOs. And Senator Chris Murphy, she doesn't want to tell the American people just how radical she actually is.
Well, if you look at her campaign, because she campaigned for this office that she seems to be getting now with no votes, and she's getting the nomination with no votes, think of that. And it'll be between two people to who wins. And I think we're going to win because
Vice President Kamala Harris.
10 Hail Marys, I meditate for practice. Channel 9 News tell me I'm moving backwards. 8 blacks left, death is around the corner. 7 misleading statements by rappers on it. 6 headlights waving in my direction. 5-0 asking me what's in my possession.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, Detroit.
So you get to see the contrast here, right? So you see Trump saying, you know, he was sitting out interview with Levine. I think it's Mark Levine. You'll see the contrast with
me or your comments?
Anyway, so you get to see the contrast of her versus Trump, and you know, Trump is spending hard. He has to. I mean, the numbers are so tight that he's going to have to push as much as he can. He's going to have to spin it as hard as he can from his perspective, which is going to be, you know, the invasions and the end of the world stuff. And I mean, it can work. I mean, it did work, you know, 8 years ago. But like I tell people, at the end of the day, you can't lose the House, lose the Senate, allow a virus to come into the country, and lose the presidency, and then you got a lot of work to do from my position at the end of the day. But he's here, and so you know, if the Republicans win, hey, I'm not mad. It's great in my world, but it's going to be an uphill battle because I don't know. I mean, America is like I always say, America's a funny place, of course. And does America want to move on? Move on from the pandemic? Move on from, you know, just move on from the past in general. You know, a lot of statistics that have come out recently, maybe the last 6 months probably, that are saying they didn't, you know, people don't really want, you know, Trump or Biden really running. And they want some new folks out here. And I guess, you know, JD might have, you know, an extremely small degree because he is younger. If you want to say that's the future of the Republican Party, which is a terrible statement to make, in my opinion. Yeah. But I'm not. I mean, I'm not a fan. Like I said before, he's not. I don't really think he's ready yet. I think there were some better choices, but you know, you gotta live with the choices that he picked. So it is what it is. But you know, I think that I would say you want to balance your positive and negative messaging. And, you know, I know Trump is trying to hold on to the base as much as possible. So he's going extremely a negative campaign, which can't, like I said before, it can work. But I don't know, you know, unless something catastrophic happens, I just don't know if he can put a dent into a very positive campaign. And they are doing their best. And it's shocking living in America where we always talk about being positive, looking forward, looking into the future. And you're watching real time Americans in the media, capitalists in the media talking about the end of the world, World War III, Civil War. I'm like, they gotta stop it. I get it though. I mean, you gotta spin it the way you can spin it. But I always find it funny. It's just not reality. You know what I'm saying? But you gotta do what you gotta do if you want to win, right? And so you will push as much fear as possible, or you will, you know. But again, a positive campaign can be challenging, I think, when you're dealing with going against a fear campaign. But I'm gonna play some of her information and see what she's talking about.
Oh, it's good to be in the House of Labor. Can we hear for Tyrese? Tyrese, I want to thank you for your extraordinary leadership and all of your words and the heart and soul that you put into your work. Like I know all the members of LIUNA and everyone here.
I have concluded a very fragile.
Does every day because we love our country and we know it is at stake. Thank you, Tyrese. So it is so good to be with so many incredible leaders and elected officials who are here. Governor Whitmer was here earlier, Senator Stabenow. Your next United States Senator, Representative Elisa Slotkin. And I always want to thank Representative Dingle. Where is she? There she is. There she is. Stevens, Stadinar, all of you for the work that you do every day. And to all the labor leaders who are here, I thank you all for your extraordinary work. Don't we love Labor Day? We love Labor Day. It's always been that way, right? The way we celebrate Labor Day is we know that hard work is good work. We know that when we organize, when we bring everyone together, it's a joyful moment where we are committed to doing the hard work of lifting up America's families. And I want to thank everyone here for that work and the way you do it every day, including General President Booker of the Laborers, President Fain of UAW, President Pringle of NEA, President Slevin of the Utility Workers, and President Weingarten of the AFT. And thank you to all of the union members who are here this afternoon. So on Labor Day and every day, we celebrate the dignity of work. The dignity of work. We celebrate unions because unions helped build America, and unions help build America's middle class. It is true across our nation, and it is true here in Detroit. Nearly 140 years ago, in this very city, 10,000 people marched in one of our nation's first Labor Day parades. Many held signs that read, "Divided, we can beg. United, we can demand." For generations in Detroit and across our nation, the brothers and sisters of labor have stood together to righteously demand fair pay, better benefits, and safe working conditions. And let me say, every person in our nation has benefited from that work. Everywhere I go, I tell people, look, you may not be a union member, you better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time. Because what we know is when union wages go up, everybody's wages go up. When union workplaces are safer, every workplace is safer. When unions are strong, America is strong. We know what we're talking about. The labor movement has always understood the power of the collective and the power of unity, the power of unity. And while we are fighting so much nonsense that is about trying to divide our country, trying to pull us apart, look to what the history and the present of labor tells us about the power of the collective in unity. The spirit of that work, as much as the product of that work, is very telling and gives us really good lessons about what creates strength. And you know, many of you know my parents met while they were active in the civil rights movement. So when I was young, my parents, I see some young leaders here today. When I was young, my parents would take me to the meetings. I see our young leaders. And take me to the marches. I was in a stroller. And from a very young age, I learned that when people stand together, when we join voices, knowing that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us, when we join those voices, we can drive extraordinary change, which is why I believe in my heart and soul, no one should ever be made to fight alone. We are all in this together. We are all in this together. But I'll tell you, I think that there has been a certain backward-thinking approach over the last several years, which is to suggest, some folks, to suggest that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of what we know, the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. Who you lift up. That's the measure of the strength of a leader. Let's stop with the nonsense. And in this election, we all here know there are two very different visions for our nation.
Всім привіт! Ми гурт «Антитіла». Запрошуємо вас на серію відкритих івентів у Сполучених Штатах Америки під назвою
Ours focused on the future, the other focused on... Let's just get through the next 64 days. How about that? And ours, yes, my dear brother, is focused on the future, and theirs is focused on the past. And we fight for the future. We fight for a future where all people receive dignity and respect and opportunity, for not just for some, but for all. That's what we are fighting for. And so we are 64 days out from the election day. And in Michigan, mail-in absentee voting starts in 24 days. 24 days. So this election and our fight is a fight for the promise of America. A promise, I love you. And ours is a fight for the promise of America, a promise of freedom, of opportunity, and justice, not just for some, but for all. But what we know is as we fight to move our nation forward, Donald Trump intends to pull us back to the past. But we're not going back. We are not going back. We're not going back. So, and we know what that would look like, right? So, intends to pull us back, including back to a time before workers had the freedom to organize. As president, we will always remember Donald Trump blocked overtime benefits from millions of workers. Tyrese talked a bit about this and opposed efforts to raise the minimum wage. He appointed union busters to the National Labor Relations Board, and he supported so-called right-to-work laws. And if well, here's the thing. We have a choice here, right? And we're not going back, because we also know that if Donald Trump were reelected, he intends to give tax cuts to billionaires and big corporations. He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He wants to impose what in effect is a national sales tax on everyday products and basic necessities that will cost, and economists have said this, that will cost a typical American family almost $4,000 a year. He wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act and take us back to a time in our country which most of us remember when insurance companies, you remember, had the power to deny people coverage based on a pre-existing condition. Remember that? Deny people, the children who had asthma, a survivor of breast cancer, a grandparent with diabetes. Look, America has tried those failed policies before, and they are failed policies. And we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. And instead, we fight for a future where no person has to go broke just because they got sick. And so when I am president, we will continue to strengthen the Affordable Care Act. We will bring down the cost of prescription drugs, not only for some, but for all Americans. We fight for a future where every worker has the freedom to organize. And so when I am president, we will pass the PRO Act and end union busting once and for all. And I'll remind everybody on all these bills, we got to elect a Congress who supports that to be able to actually get that work done. We fight for a future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead. And so when I am president, we will continue to build what I call an opportunity economy, so that every American has an opportunity to own a home, to start a business, to build intergenerational wealth for their family. We fight for a future where every senior can retire with dignity. And so when I am president, we will continue to defend Social Security, Medicare, and pensions, just like we have done. Days. 64 days. The most important election of our lives, and probably one of the most important in the life of our nation. And here's what I'd say to all the brothers and sisters assembled. We know this is going to be a very tight race to the very end. We know, and I got your back, but I'm telling you, we know how they play. We know what they do. So let's not pay too much attention to the polls. Let's know, like labor always does, we are out here running like we are the underdog in this race because we know what we are fighting for. We know what we stand for, and that's why we know what we fight for. And we got some hard work ahead of us, but again, we all like hard work because hard work is good work. And to do that hard work, I'm going to count on everyone here, all the leaders here, for your work, for your organizing, knocking on doors, and getting folks to the polls. Because put bluntly, Michigan, y'all know how to win. You know how to win. You know how to win. So today I ask Detroit, Michigan, are you ready to have your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win.
Picture this. You're sitting at home alone watching YouTube videos, wondering why you can't find the motivation to do the things
supporter of reproductive freedom. You know, as chair of the DNC, it is my honor and it's my privilege to work on this incredibly important issue. But it's
so let me just say this before I pretty much shut this down. But anyway, very good speech, very consistent, very strong. 60 some days to go, like she said. Trump's doing his thing. He's pushing and she's pushing as well. But very positive speech, very exciting speech. I won't get into none of the underlining things from the Democratic Party necessarily, but just pure on the political tip. Very very good job from very very positive, very upbeat message. And I think Trump and them are going to have to step it up. In my opinion, they got to step it up a little bit here. They can keep pushing the campaign that they're pushing, and it might work. It is holding the numbers, but like I said, I think she's edging him out. And I think when they had the debate, thinking about 8 days, we'll really see. You really get to probably see a good contrast depending on how they approach this. I think there's a way to present to the American people the issues, and they're kind of showing it on the left right now with her and how they're doing their speeches, where you can talk about the borders, you can talk about people coming across the border and making it an issue, you can talk about sanctuary cities or whatever, but it's still how you talk about it. And I think we might be in a time where you can bring those up, but you still want to talk about the positives of America and not as much of the grievances. Like I said, it does work. The internet absolutely loves grievance, and it feeds off of that and pornography for some strange reason. But anyway, so we're gonna see. I would say it's like grievances versus moving forward in positivity. It's such a good contrast. Because it's pretty much black and white, right? Normal political seasons, in my opinion, which you haven't had in 8 years, you would pretty much get a right position, a left position, and you do what you do as far as the people who are swing voters or whatever. I'm voting Republican, no matter, doesn't really matter at the end of the day, right? I'm just a traditional, typical Republican for the most part. And people who are typical Democrats are going to vote Democratic. It doesn't really matter who's on the ticket necessarily. You might be more or less excited about it, but you vote the way you vote. And then you have everybody who can't make decisions in the middle somewhere, or the people who might want to stay home because they're mad for some particular reason at a politician or whatever's going on in the party, and they might stay home and just not vote. But I think both campaigns are doing a pretty good job. Like I said, I just don't know, has America moved on from the grievance time frame and is ready kind of for more of a positive? Because if you're on the internet, it's nothing positive on the internet. Internet is 100,000% absolutely negative about everything in the world. World War III, Civil War, every negative statistic that you can find, it's all negative, it's all gross, it's all nasty on the internet. Nobody appears to be happy, even though the people who are pushing all the negative stuff live in mansions and are mostly all millionaires. That's the funny part about it. At least the really popular people. That's why I always find it funny that it's just like viruses or leeches or something. They're just sucking people's the most negative parts of people. And so gonna see, does America gonna stay in that space, or can it tolerate? I mean, you got to think about something from a less perspective. A person laughing or being happy is negative to me is crazy. I mean, and what I mean by that is most Americans, well, let me not say most, a good percentage of Americans are working, and you got to be, generally speaking, you have to be in a pretty positive mood for a lot of jobs. Not every job, of course, but a lot of jobs. So people know people really, to me, kind of know what it is. And people who are retired or who aren't working, they still also understand that overall you want to be positive, right? You don't want to walk even into somebody's house who's negative, be it your parents' house or a friend's house or whatever, right? You want to, generally speaking, be positive, no matter how bad things might be. Um, and we live in a great nation, a successful nation, a very wealthy nation, etc. And with all the issues that it might have, it always could be obviously worse, and it always can be better. But anyway, so they are. I think this is the kickoff for the reproductive fight. So I was thinking about saving this maybe for tomorrow and shutting it down, but maybe I do about 5 or 10 minutes of this and then close this on up and see what they're talking about. But I thought I saw somebody. I think Wasserman Schultz is here, and I want to say Anna Navarro. Maybe I want to hear a little bit of her. And let me see what they're saying. See if it's interesting, and then we can close this down.
Donald Trump's backyard. I was sort of hoping that we.
And remember something, they're kicking this off in Florida, in Palm Beach County. Just put that in. It's pretty funny, actually. And if people don't think they're going out to Florida, I know they're not spending no money there yet. And as a political person, as they always say in politics, follow the money, right? So if there is no money spent, I won't give it a lot of attention yet in Florida. Not just yet. It's only 60-some days left. It's only so much time left, and so maybe there is no time there because North Carolina, is on the line now, in Pennsylvania and Georgia. So you just may not have the bandwidth to mess with Florida, and so Trump don't have to spend any money there. She doesn't have to spend any money there, and we just keep things kind of moving. But if anybody start bleeding now and some money start getting spent, then we have a conversation about Florida. I'm excited about Florida, though. I hope it's in play. Maybe not this time. Maybe in 2 years or 4 years, we'll see.
We would just pull the bus right up to Mar-a-Lago and actually be in his backyard. But we'll settle for this wonderful restaurant. I am so thrilled to help launch this Reproductive Freedom Harris Walls Battle Bus Tour in Florida.
No matter who you are, there are times it can be tough to be yourself when you have.
Because right now in our state, thanks to Donald Trump and his MAGA buddies, we're dealing with the fallout of an extreme, life-threatening, near-total abortion ban. This law is so restrictive that it limits abortion access before.
And I will say this, and Trump has to be very careful because I think he did make a mistake. I want to say that DeSantis is or has passed a law, I think, for 6 weeks on abortion bans, and maybe they want to do a whole complete ban, like in a few other states, or maybe like 11 states. I can't remember, but anyway, an all-out ban complete. But when Trump said that he wants to vote against it, I forgot what he said. Somebody grabbed him and asked him a question about. I forget who it was. But then he was like, "No, I want to extend it for more weeks and stuff like that." And I'm thinking to myself, man, you got to make a decision, man. Don't if you your court that you put in place ban this stuff at the federal level. It goes back to the state. If all the states want to ban, if half the states want to ban it, then they want to ban it. Just I don't understand why you would even play with that. And if you lose women, you lose women, right? You just got to deal with the consequences of the action that we've made. You want to keep things a certain kind of way, then you got to hold position and hope that you can get people who are against abortion to obviously come out and vote to hold position. But anyway.
Many women even know they are pregnant. I did not find out that I was pregnant with our youngest child until I was 8 weeks pregnant. Thank God she is a healthy, thriving 21-year-old, beautiful girl today. But this Trump ban even threatens doctors with fines and prison time for providing care to their patients. Boo isn't even enough. Physicians and nurses are fleeing our state because of it. Well, this election, we can change that by voting for Amendment 4 on Florida's ballot to restore reproductive rights to Florida's Constitution. Because we're not going back. We're not going back. After Trump's assault on reproductive freedoms, voters in states across America, even red states like Kansas and Kentucky and Ohio, rejected extreme abortion bans at the ballot box. Now we need to follow in their footsteps to protect a woman's right to choose in Florida. Democrats pushed for it, but 20% of the people who signed the petition to get it on the ballot were Republicans. But my friends, you know who's not for it? Donald Trump. On Friday, he committed to voting no on Amendment 4, doubling down on what we already knew. You can't trust a damn word out of that liar's mouth, no matter what he says. Florida is ground zero for his extreme anti-reproductive freedom agenda, and he wants to keep it that way. But let's be clear. We know you can't trust anything that comes out of his mouth. What we can be sure of is if Donald Trump is reelected, God forbid, he will go further. He'll ban abortion nationwide and drag us back to an era of back alley abortion care, a time when women bled out at home or alone in hotel rooms. Even today, in Florida, women are already being turned away from hospitals. His Project 2025 agenda includes banning abortion nationwide, even without the help of Congress. It calls for jailing healthcare providers for mailing medication abortion by using an obscure law from 1873. You just cannot make this stuff up. That's an ancient law that J.D. Vance and the right-wing Supreme Court majority justices say they want to see enforced. Now, as legislators, Amy, Lois, and I are in a co-equal branch of government, and it's our duty to safeguard the freedoms that define our democracy. And when we send Vice President Harris to the White House in her own right and elect a Democratic Congress, we will send a bill to her desk that restores reproductive rights in the law once and for all. And she will sign it. But the only way, my friends, that happens is if we send a resounding message for freedom at the ballot. I am talking top to bottom. It starts with Harris, but we need to remove that Medicare fraudster Rick Scott from the United States Senate and put Debbie McCarcel-Powell in his place. This is how vile he is. It's a man who shamelessly uses his daughter's IVF experience to pander to voters, then thinks behind their backs he can vote against ensuring that this lifeline exists for all of us. As a mom who had her twins, my oldest two, through IVF, that is so grossly offensive. And it doesn't stop there. We need to vote out the pair of state Supreme Court justices who tried to block Amendment 4 and helped impose this ban on us. So wait, I want you to really listen to this because this doesn't make the headlines as much. Tell all your friends to vote no on Justices Sasso and Francis for retention because they've got to go. And we absolutely need to send Lois Frankel and Jared Moskowitz back to Congress. How do we do it? We turn out the vote here in Florida. We urge people to vote a full reproductive freedom ballot from president to the Senate, the House, and all the way to yes on Amendment 4. We need to organize and knock on doors. We need to call and text people and remind them to turn out. Make sure they sign up to vote by mail. And we need to make our voices heard this November. It's going to be close, my friends, so let's not kid ourselves. Whether it's Harris or Amendment 4, the final margins could be rigged.
Different ethnicities. I see men who are allies. Thank you to all of you. We are in this together. So, my name is Ana Navarro, and yes, I am a childless dog mom. I am very excited to be here today in what is the first of 50 stops of the Reproductive Freedom Bus Tour. And I'm here to speak about Kamala Harris, the empathetic warrior who has been my friend for 7 years and who will be my president for 8. I'm really happy that we are kicking this off in Florida because God knows we need the help. Look, Kamala and our rights are on the ballot this November. Kamala and Amendment 4 are on the ballot this November. And I am a lifelong registered Republican. And yes, I'm still registered Republican because I like to vote against Marco Rubio in the primaries. And I am going to vote for both. I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris, and I'm going to vote for Amendment 4. And in both those issues, the presidential race and Amendment 4, we have a binary choice. So let me tell you about that choice. On the one hand, we have Trump and J.D. Vance, who agreed. So J.D. Vance agreed in a radio interview.
You are going to write a new chapter by electing Kamala and Tim. Here is where you will pass Amendment 4. You see.
Now is Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Senator Cotton, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Kristen, for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's start with this devastating news, the discovery of 6 bodies, hostages, including Israeli-American Hirsch Goldberg Polin. Everyone, I think, feels heartbroken this morning, the entire nation and frankly world mourning these deaths. What is your reaction, Senator, and what do you think this will mean for hostage negotiations?
Well, it's terribly sad news that Hamas executed these 6 hostages in cold blood, apparently shot them in the head shortly before they might have been rescued by Israeli Defense Forces. My heart goes out to all the families, especially Hirsch Goldberg Polin's family, our fellow American. There are other fellow Americans still to be accounted for. But I think we should note that these hostages were discovered in the tunnels under Rafah. That's where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put pressure on Israel not to enter for months, used an arms embargo to try to keep them from entering. Kamala Harris even said that Israel shouldn't enter Rafah because she had studied the maps. What the Biden-Harris administration should have done from the beginning is not pressure Israel to restrain its response, but let Israel win from the very outset. For 11 months, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have put more pressure on Israel than they put on Hamas and Iran's other terror proxies.
And Senator, just to be clear, there, of course, is no arms embargo. It is true that the Biden administration did halt one shipment of arms out of concern
No,
of
that's
civilian
not
casualties.
correct. No, Kristen, that's not correct.
It is correct. There's no
There
arms
was
embargo.
for weeks, the Biden-Harris administration put an embargo, not just on large 2,000-pound bombs, which of course are needed to penetrate these deep and buried tunnels, but on things like tank rounds and artillery shells and mortar rounds.
It was just one shipment of arms. It was the 2,000-pound
No, Kristen, it was a
weapons that you're
large
talking about
category
and
of weapons.
500 pounds. But
It was a large category of weapons.
Okay, but they have now moved forward with that. It's not an arms embargo, though, just to be very clear. That's a very specific term, and it's not an arms embargo.
It was in place for many weeks, specifically to try to prevent Israel from entering Rafah, where these hostages were discovered.
Yeah.
If we had simply backed Israel to the hilt from October 7th, this war would probably be over. We probably would have found many more hostages alive, and there would have been fewer civilian casualties caused by Hamas's infliction of those civilian casualties on its own people. But at every turn, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have put more pressure on Israel than they have on Iran and Hamas.
And of course, they have also argued that the U.S. stands firmly behind Israel. It was one arms shipment. Let's talk about Prime Minister
No, Kristen,
Netanyahu.
it was more than, it was many more. No, Kristen,
Netanyahu,
you can do your fact check thing all you want. I'm going to tell you the real facts. It was a large category of weapons, far beyond just 2,000-pound bombs.
Okay, but it wasn't an arms embargo. That's my only point. It wasn't specifically an arms embargo. Let's just move forward, though, in terms of what Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing right now, because he's been facing pressure in the wake of this. He's been resistant to accepting this hostage deal. Axios' Barak Ravid reports that a senior Israeli official said, quote, "We warned Netanyahu and the cabinet ministers about this exact scenario, but they wouldn't listen." Do you believe Prime Minister Netanyahu bears any responsibility for not getting a deal sooner?
No, I believe Hamas bears responsibility for not turning these hostages back over to their families and surrendering. At every turn, Benjamin Netanyahu has tried to meet the Biden administration halfway. They continue to move the goalposts. They continue to encourage and embolden Hamas. Consider what happened just a few weeks ago when the prime minister was here to speak at the Capitol. Kamala Harris didn't even sit behind him in a joint session of her Congress, one of her few duties as vice president. Then she came out after a private meeting with him and stressed that we need a ceasefire now, which is the de facto Hamas position. What did you have 2 days later? You had Israeli children being blown up on playgrounds because every time Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put more pressure on Israel, it simply emboldens Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran.
Just to be very clear, though, there is pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu. You have people protesting in the streets. He is, of course, the leader of Israel, and that's who I'm asking you about. Do you think, and would you urge him in this moment, Senator, to get a deal given these casualties?
I would urge him to finish the job against Hamas, which is exactly what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden should have done from the very beginning. Again, if we had backed Israel to the hilt, if we hadn't continually put pressure on Israel to slow and to moderate its response, Hamas would have been broken and we would have gotten more of these hostages out alive. The only time Hamas has even come close to releasing hostages is when they are on the ropes.
And of course, the U.S. has given more aid, both military and monetary, to Israel than any other country. But let's
well, to be exact, we've given hundreds of billions of dollars in relief to Iran.
Well, some of that money, of course, is frozen. But let's move on to some domestic issues, if we could. The issue of abortion front and center this week. Donald Trump has gone from calling himself throughout the arc of time very pro-choice at one point. He's more recently bragged about overturning Roe v. Wade. He now says he's going to vote to keep Florida's 6-week abortion ban in place, a law he once described as terrible. How can people trust Trump on this issue when he keeps shifting his position?
Well, the president's been very clear. He does not support a nationwide abortion law. In fact, there's only one candidate in this race who supports a nationwide abortion law. It's Kamala Harris. And we know what it is because the Senate proposed it and we voted on it. It is radical and extreme. It would require taxpayer funding of abortion up to the moment of birth. That's what she stands for. She's the only one in this race calling for a nationwide abortion law, something that is wildly unpopular.
Just to be clear, the bill you're talking to requires that there be exceptions for health through the end of pregnancy, not that all abortions be legal in all cases.
But President Trump has said he supports exceptions when a woman's health is at risk,
but
when she's been raped or been the victim of incest.
And I
the
guess,
vast majority of Americans support those as well. But this law is radical. It would overturn 50 years of precedent and require taxpayer funding for abortion, even in these cases.
well, taxpayer funding for abortion is currently, of course, illegal under the Hyde Amendment. And just to be clear, abortions later in pregnancy, 21 weeks and after, are extremely rare.
Well, if they're so rare,
in the case of a health emergency.
If they're so rare, why won't Kamala Harris say, then fine, we shouldn't allow them with those exceptions?
Because
if
of
they're
the
so
concern
rare.
for health emergencies.
But if you have those exceptions, Kristen, if you have those exceptions, it will account for those rare health emergencies. So why won't she say
But that is what the law does. It says up to the time of viability with exceptions. States are allowed to have exceptions if there are health emergencies.
Kamala Harris voted against the Born Alive Victims Protection Act.
She did not.
Yes, she did.
Senator,
I was there.
She voted against.
I was there. She voted against it. Kristen, if these cases are so rare,
she voted
in the
against
late
advancing
term,
the bill.
if these cases are so rare in late-term pregnancy, then why won't she say, you know what, we should prohibit these with exceptions for the mother's life?
Yeah.
Why won't she say that? Because she is a radical on abortion.
Just to be clear, she voted against advancing the bill twice when she was senator. She's called it extreme. Let me ask you about something else. I interviewed J.D. Vance last week. He told me Donald Trump would veto a federal abortion ban if it came to his desk. Now Trump is not committing to that. Do you think he would sign that veto if it came to his desk?
Well, Kristen, I think it's a hypothetical. First off, we both know there's not going to be 60 votes in the Senate anytime soon for either party's preferred or centrist position on abortion, whether it's the radical position that Democrats have or the pro-life position that most Republicans have. So I think it's a hypothetical question. But President Trump has been consistent, is that there's not going to be a nationwide abortion law while he's president. He appointed 3 justices who reversed Roe v. Wade, which was wrongly decided, which even liberal scholars acknowledged was poorly reasoned, and returned this question to where it had rested for 170 years, which is the American people making choices through their elected representatives at their states. States are going to have different kinds of laws. Donald Trump has acknowledged that.
I hear you're saying that former President Trump has been consistent, but as we showed, he's actually pivoted quite a bit on this issue. But J.D. Vance was very clear. He said that Donald Trump would veto a nationwide ban. And I guess the question is, why can't Trump be clear with people about where he stands? Are you clear? I know you're saying it's a hypothetical.
Kristen, he
But are
has
you
been
clear
clear
about
that,
what he
that
would do?
he has been clear that there will not be a nationwide abortion law when he's president. He has been perfectly consistent on that. Now, Kamala Harris, to her credit, she's been consistent and not tried to hide her radical position on abortion. It's the only position she hasn't tried to hide over the last 6 weeks, like her position on decriminalizing illegal immigration or banning gas-powered cars or banning fracking. Abortion is the one issue on which she hasn't tried to hide her position from the American people in this election.
I'm going to talk to Congressman Rokon about all of that coming up, but let's stick with Donald Trump. His big announcement on IVF this week. He said Thursday he wants the government to pay for or force insurance companies to cover IVF. Is that something you would support, Senator?
Well, all Republicans, to my knowledge, support IVF in the Congress, and there's no state that prohibits or regulates IVF in a way that makes it inaccessible. It is expensive for many couples. I understand that. So it's something I'm open to, that most Republicans would be open to. I think we'd have to evaluate the fiscal impact, whether the taxpayer can afford to pay for this, what impact it would have on premiums. But in principle, supporting couples who are trying to use IVF or other fertility treatments, I don't think is something that's controversial at all.
Well, 2 months ago, you voted against a Senate bill that would have protected and expand IVF access, and it would have mandated that some coverage was covered by health insurance plans. If that bill came back to the floor, would you now support it? Is that what you're saying?
You mean Chuck Schumer's ridiculous messaging bill?
So no.
That requires fertility treatment for men who think they're women? That was slapped together in the summer, in which he slapped together a bunch of other bills.
It's a bill that also would have protected and expanded IVF
Chuck
access.
Schumer has spent all summer. No. Chuck Schumer spent all summer long slapping together ridiculous bills that he thinks are going to help his liberal incumbent senators face off in their reelections.
Just very quickly, do you know where this money would come from to cover IVF? Because in 2022, some $8 billion were paid by.
Well, no, again, that's why I say we'd have to evaluate any specific legislation.
So you wouldn't support taxpayer dollars.
I'd have to evaluate any specific legislation as I would on any legislation.
So you're still undecided on where you stand on this government-funded IVF plan.
Well, I certainly support couples having access to IVF, and it's not even a controversial issue in any of the 50 states.
All right, let me ask you about another one of the big headlines this week, Donald Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery. You've been talking about this. He attended a wreath-laying ceremony, obviously, for the 13 service members who were killed during the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. He was invited by those family members, important to say that. He also had campaign staffers with him. Photos, videos were posted on a campaign site. Taking campaign photos and videos at grave sites is forbidden under federal law. You, of course, served at Arlington Cemetery in the Old Guard, so I know that this is a sacred place for you. Bottom line, though, I guess, Senator, is it ever appropriate to make campaign content at military grave sites?
He didn't take campaign photos there. These families, Gold Star families, whose children died because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's incompetence, invited him to the cemetery. And they asked him to take those photos because, as they told me yesterday, when I spoke to Kelly Barnett and Darren Hoover, the parents of Taylor Hoover, who has Arkansas ties, they don't get to go to the beach on Labor Day. They don't get to have barbecues. This is their one chance to have a memory of their children, to commemorate their service and to honor their sacrifice. They wanted President Trump there. They wanted to take those photos. You know who the families also invited? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Where were they? Joe Biden was sitting at a beach. Kamala Harris was sitting at her mansion in Washington, D.C. She was 4 miles away, 10 minutes. She could have gone to the cemetery and honored the sacrifice of those young men and women.
All right, that's a good place to stop. That's a good place to stop. All right. Shout out to Tom Cotton from Arkansas, one of the future people running for president for the Republican Party. Some normal Republican talking points there. No crazy stuff, at least from a Republican's perspective. But anyway, I appreciate everybody listening. Like, subscribe, share the content. I'm going to shut this down. So this is the Code Breaker. This is Paradox. See you next time. Peace.